A boy no one believed watched from his bedroom window as a biker club was betrayed from within. He knew what he saw, even if no one else would listen. One quiet decision would expose a trusted brother, fracture a powerful bond, and force grown men to face a truth only a child was brave enough to say out loud. The first thing Jason noticed wasn't the motorcycle. It was the silence. Across the street from his bedroom window, the Dead Ravens MC Clubhouse was never quiet at night. Engines revving, deep laughter rolling out from the open garage, classic rock bleeding through the walls. It all blended into a rhythm Jason had grown used to. A rhythm he found oddly comforting. He didn't spy on them. Not really. He observed. There's a difference. At 12 years old, Jason knew how to disappear. At school, he moved through hallways without friction, without notice. No close friends. No lunch table that felt like his. Just notebooks filled with sketches of motorcycles, detailed drawings of leather jackets, and notes about things he'd seen that no one ever believed. Jason makes things up, a girl named Elise had said once, loud enough for the whole class to hear. He just wants attention. He'd stopped trying to correct people after that. His mother didn't help. Every time Jason mentioned something he'd seen at the clubhouse, a new bike, an argument between members, the way they always checked the locks twice before leaving, she'd tense up. Stay away from those men, Jason. They're dangerous. His father was different, calmer, but just as dismissive. You've got quite the imagination, son, he'd say, barely looking up from his newspaper. Then he'd turn the page, and that would be the end of it, so Jason stopped talking about what he saw. But he never stopped watching. Through his binoculars, he'd learned the rhythms of the Dead Ravens. He knew Douglas, the vice president, arrived every Thursday evening like clockwork. He knew Lou, the mechanic, drank his coffee black and cursed at stubborn engine parts. The tall guy with the braided beard, they called him Wrench, had a daughter who visited on weekends, always carrying a pink backpack. Jason liked them, even though they never waved or acknowledged the quiet kid across the street. To him, they represented certainty, men who knew who they were and where they belonged. Jason didn't have that at school, at home, or anywhere else. That night, Jason couldn't settle. Jason sat by his window, binoculars resting on the sill. It was late, past the time when the clubhouse usually went quiet. But something felt off. Movement. Behind the building, near the side entrance where they kept the bikes. A man slipped through the door. Jason adjusted the focus. He didn't recognize him, not exactly, but he'd seen him before. Weeks ago, laughing with Douglas outside the clubhouse. Casual. Friendly. Part of the circle. Tonight, he moved differently. Quick. Purposeful. He wore a red bandana tied around his head. Jason's pulse quickened. He watched as the man disappeared inside, then emerged moments later holding something small in his hand. A key fob. He moved to one of the bikes, Douglas's. Jason recognized the custom exhaust pipes, and began working on it. The man knew what he was doing. No hesitation. He disabled something near the front wheel, then carefully rolled the motorcycle backward, tilting it at an angle as he guided it toward the street. A dull gray truck was parked just beyond the streetlight's reach. The man loaded the bike into the back with practiced efficiency. Jason caught a glimpse of the truck's door. A faded logo, unreadable from this distance, and a dent near the rear light. Then the truck drove away. Jason sat frozen, binoculars still pressed to his face. His mind raced. Should he tell someone? Call the police? Wake his parents? But doubt crept in fast. Maybe it was allowed. Maybe Douglas had asked the man to move the bike. Maybe Jason was misunderstanding again, seeing something that wasn't really there. That's what people always told him. He grabbed his notebook and wrote everything down. The time, the red bandana, the way the man tilted the bike, the truck's dent, the scratch he'd noticed on the motorcycle's left side, 3 lines, like claw marks. Then he climbed into bed and stared at the ceiling, wondering if anyone would believe him, or if he'd imagined the whole thing. Morning came too fast. Jason woke to the sound of raised voices. He scrambled to his window, heart already pounding. The clubhouse parking lot was crowded. More bikers than usual for a weekday morning. Their postures were tense, arms crossed, heads shaking. Something was very wrong. Jason pressed closer to the glass. Douglas stood in the center of the group, his face darker than Jason had ever seen it. Lou was crouched near an empty spot where a motorcycle should have been, examining the ground like it might offer answers. Jason's stomach dropped. He grabbed his notebook, flipping to last night's entry. His hands trembled slightly. Red bandana. Gray truck. The scratch like claw marks. It was all there, written in his careful handwriting. This was real. What he'd seen was real. But telling them? That was different. Downstairs, his mother was making breakfast. The smell of eggs and toast filled the kitchen. Everything felt wrong. Ordinary sounds in the middle of something that wasn't ordinary at all. Jason, eat something before school, she called. He couldn't. His throat felt tight. He picked at his food, eyes constantly darting to the window. Through the thin curtains, he could see more bikers arriving. The mood wasn't just tense anymore, it was angry. His father appeared, coffee in hand, and glanced outside. "Lot of activity over there this morning," he said casually. "Wonder what's going on." Jason opened his mouth, closed it. His father wouldn't believe him. Nobody ever did. "Jason." His mother touched his shoulder. "You look pale. Are you feeling all right?" "I'm fine," he whispered. At school, Jason couldn't focus. Math class became sketches of the truck in his notebook margin. English class became lists of details, the bandana, the way the man moved, the tilt of the bike. By lunch, something had shifted inside him. He had to tell them. He had to tell them. The walk home dragged. Each block felt heavier than the last. When he reached his street, the clubhouse was quieter. Most of the bikers had left. But a few remained. Lou sat on a wooden crate outside the garage, talking to a younger member Jason didn't recognize. Douglas leaned against the wall, phone pressed to his ear, frustration etched across his face. Jason stopped at the edge of his driveway, his mother's warnings echoing in his mind about dangerous men and keeping his distance, along with his classmates' familiar accusations that he was just seeking attention. But what he'd seen was real, and walking away from it no longer felt like an option. He crossed the street. His legs moved without permission, carrying him forward before fear could stop him. He reached the clubhouse entrance. Lou noticed him first, eyebrows raising slightly. The younger biker, someone called him Hatch, glanced over with mild curiosity. "Can we help you, kid?" Lou asked. Not unkind, but not welcoming either. Jason's voice came out smaller than he'd hoped. "I think someone took your keys last night." Lou blinked. Hatch smirked. "What?" Lou said. "Your motorcycle," Jason continued, forcing himself to keep talking. "I saw someone take it. Last night. Around midnight." Douglas had ended his phone call. He walked over slowly, studying Jason with an expression the boy couldn't read. "You saw something?" Douglas's voice was careful, skeptical. "I live across the street," Jason said, pointing to his window. "I was awake. I saw a man go into your clubhouse. He came out with keys and took the motorcycle." Hatch laughed, short and sharp. "Kid, the cameras were disabled. Nobody saw anything." "I did," Jason insisted. His face burned, but he didn't look away. "I know people don't usually believe me, but I really saw it." Lou exchanged a glance with Douglas. Something shifted in the mechanic's expression, not quite belief but interest. "The thing is," Lou said slowly, "that bike doesn't just roll out. It's locked down 3 ways. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. Knew the bike." Jason nodded quickly. He did. The way he moved, he tilted it just right to get it up into the truck bed. Like he'd done it before. Lou straightened. "What do you mean, tilted it?" "He angled it backward first, then lifted from the left side because the exhaust is on the right. He knew the weight distribution." The smirk vanished from Hatch's face. Lou took a step closer. "Who taught you about motorcycles?" "Nobody," Jason admitted. "I just watch. I've seen you load bikes before in the garage. You always do it the same way." Douglas's eyes narrowed, but not with suspicion anymore. With focus. "Describe him," Douglas said quietly. Jason's mouth went dry, but he pushed forward. "He wore a red bandana, dark jacket. He moved fast like he knew where everything was. And the motorcycle?" Jason paused, pulling details from memory. It had a scratch on the left side. 3 lines. Like claw marks. The silence that followed was absolute. Douglas's face went pale. Lou cursed under his breath. Even Hatch looked stunned. "That scratch is real," Douglas said, his voice hollow. "I got it 2 years ago in a parking lot incident. Never bothered fixing it." "And the man?" Lou pressed. "What did he look like?" Jason closed his eyes, picturing the scene. "I've seen him before. Here. Talking with you," he said, looking at Douglas. "A few weeks ago. You were laughing together outside." Douglas took a sharp breath. Douglas went still. Dangerously still. "Get inside," Douglas said, his voice flat and cold. Not to Jason, to the others. Lou and Hatch moved immediately. Jason hesitated at the threshold, uncertain if the invitation included him. Douglas noticed and gestured sharply. "You too, kid. Now." Jason had imagined the clubhouse interior countless times from his window. Being inside felt surreal. Photographs lined the walls, group shots, bikes, memorial patches for fallen members. A long wooden bar stretched across one side. Mismatched furniture filled the center. Within minutes, the room filled with more bikers. Word had spread fast. They crowded around as Douglas stood in the center, his face carved from stone. "Talk," Douglas said to Jason. "Everything. From the beginning." Jason's voice shook at first, but steadied as he spoke, saying what he saw. Close to midnight, the side entrance, the way the man had moved with absolute certainty. He described the truck. Dull gray paint. Something faded on the driver's door that looked like a company name. The dent near the rear taillight stood out, like someone had backed into a pole. "He loaded the bike like a professional," Jason added. "No struggling. No adjusting. He'd done it before." One of the older bikers, a man with silver in his beard they called Crater, leaned forward. "And you're sure you've seen this guy here before?" Jason nodded. "A few weeks back. He was standing right outside, near where the bikes are parked. He and Douglas were talking, laughing about something. He seemed," Jason searched for the word, "comfortable, like he belonged." Douglas closed his eyes. When he opened them, they were empty of everything except pain. "Landon," he said quietly. "Landon Trent." The name landed heavy. Several bikers exchanged looks. Lou swore viciously. "That's not possible," Hatch said. "Landon has been around for years. He's helped with runs, covered shifts. He's never patched in." Douglas interrupted, his voice gaining an edge. "I vouched for him, brought him around, trusted him." He looked at Lou. "You remember when I met him?" Lou nodded grimly. "Years back. He helped you fix a bike on the side of the road. You said he was solid. I was wrong." Crater pulled out his phone, fingers moving fast across the screen. "Landon Trent drives a commercial van for his day job, but he's got a personal truck registered to his name. Gray Chevy Silverado. I'm pulling it up now." Moments later, he turned the phone around. The image showed a weathered gray truck with a faded logo on the door, Trent Electric Services, and visible damage to the rear passenger side. Jason's breath caught. "That's it. That's the truck." Douglas took the phone, staring at the image like it might change if he looked long enough. His hands trembled slightly. "He's been here dozens of times," Douglas said, almost to himself. "I introduced him to everyone, told him things, club business, trusted him with access." His voice cracked. "He knew where we kept the spare keys, knew the camera system, knew which bike was mine." Lou placed a hand on Douglas's shoulder, but the vice president shrugged it off. "This is on me," Douglas said quietly. "I vouched for him, brought him inside, gave him access." Crater started to speak, but Douglas raised a hand. "Don't," he said. "I don't need excuses. I need to fix what I broke." The room fell quiet. Jason stood near the wall, feeling suddenly invisible again. He'd delivered the information, done what he came to do. Now he was witnessing something private, something breaking. Hatch broke the silence. "We need to move. If Landon knows we're onto him, he'll disappear." Crater was already dialing. "I've got contacts at the impound lot and a guy who runs a chop shop on the east side. If Landon is smart, he hasn't moved the bike yet. He'll wait a few days, let things cool down. Check warehouses, Lou suggested. Landon did electrical work all over the county. He'd know which buildings are empty, which ones have easy access. Douglas finally moved, his posture shifting from devastated to focused. Crater, make those calls. Lou, pull up every property Landon has worked on in the last 6 months. Hatch, call in everyone who's available. I want eyes everywhere. The bikers scattered into action. Phones appeared, conversations overlapped. A map was spread across the bar. Jason watched them transform from a group of stunned men into something coordinated and dangerous. Days passed. Then Crater made the call. They'd found it. A warehouse on the industrial edge of town, one Landon had rewired 8 months ago. The lock had been changed recently. The owner hadn't authorized it. The police were called. Douglas insisted on that, despite some protests. We do this right, he'd said. No room for him to claim we planted anything. Jason heard about it from Lou, who'd stopped by his house personally to deliver the news. Landon had been arrested at the warehouse. The motorcycle was recovered, untouched except for the disabled tracking system. But sitting in his room that night, Jason didn't feel victorious. He felt the weight of what his words had caused. A man arrested, a friendship destroyed, trust shattered. Through his window, the clubhouse looked dimmer than usual. Fewer bikes, less noise. The betrayal had left a wound deeper than any stolen motorcycle. Jason wondered if this was what truth cost, if doing the right thing always felt this heavy. Days went by. Jason heard nothing. He'd started to think they'd forgotten about him. He'd watched the clubhouse from his window each night, noting the subdued atmosphere. Fewer gatherings, shorter visits. The usual energy had been replaced by something quieter, heavier. Jason wondered if he'd made things worse. If maybe staying silent would have been better. At school, nothing had changed. He still ate lunch alone. Still sketched in his notebooks while others talked around him. Elise had made another comment about him living in his own world, and Jason hadn't bothered responding. Why waste the breath? The knock came on a quiet evening. His mother answered, surprise clear in her voice. Jason heard her surprised voice from upstairs. Oh, hello. Can I help you? Evening, ma'am. Name's Lou. I work at the clubhouse across the street. A pause. Is Jason home? We'd like to talk to him, if that's all right. Jason's stomach flipped. He appeared at the top of the stairs, meeting his mother's uncertain gaze. Jason, she said carefully, these men want to speak with you. He descended slowly. Lou stood in the doorway, looking oddly formal. Behind him, Jason could see Crater leaning against a motorcycle. It's all right, Mom, Jason said quietly. His mother didn't look convinced, but she stepped aside. I'll be right here if you need me. Lou offered a slight smile. We're not here to cause trouble, ma'am. Opposite, actually. Your son did something remarkable, and we wanted to thank him properly. Jason followed Lou across the street, his mother watching from the doorway. The clubhouse looked the same from outside, but when they entered, Jason realized something was different. The room was packed. Bikers filled every corner, and they all turned when Jason entered. His instinct was to shrink back, but Lou's hand on his shoulder kept him steady. Douglas stood near the center, looking less hollow than the last time Jason had seen him. Still tired, still carrying weight, but present. Jason, Douglas said, his voice carrying across the quiet room. Come here. Jason walked forward, hyper-aware of every eye on him. When he reached Douglas, the vice president crouched down to eye level. I owe you an apology, Douglas said. When you came to us, I didn't want to believe you. Thought you were just some kid. He paused. I was wrong. You weren't the only one, Jason admitted softly. No, but I should have known better. You came to us with information that could have gotten you dismissed, laughed at, ignored. You did it anyway. That takes guts. Douglas paused. The bike's back. Landon is facing charges. And none of that would have happened without you. Jason didn't know what to say. His throat felt tight. Douglas reached behind him and pulled out a black baseball cap. The dead raven's emblem sat on the front. A raven mid-flight, wings spread wide. "This doesn't make you a member?" Douglas said carefully, placing the cap in Jason's hands. "You're 12. You've got a lot of living to do before decisions like that. But it means you're seen. You're respected. You spoke up when it mattered, and that's something we value above almost everything else." Jason held the cap like it might dissolve. His fingers traced the embroidered raven. "You saw what we didn't," Douglas continued, his voice rougher now. "What I didn't. I let someone I cared about betray us because I was too proud to question my own judgment. You didn't have that problem. You saw the truth and said it, even knowing nobody might believe you." "I was scared," Jason whispered. "Being scared doesn't make you weak. It makes the courage count more." Douglas stood, addressing the room now. "Jason's welcome here. Anytime. No kid should feel invisible in his own neighborhood." Crater stepped forward. "Want to see the bike? The one you saved?" Jason nodded, unable to find words. They led him into the garage, a space he'd only ever seen from his window. Motorcycles in various states of repair filled the space. Tools hung organized on walls. The smell of oil and metal was overwhelming in the best way. Douglas's bike sat near the center, chrome gleaming under the overhead lights. The scratch on the left side was still there, 3 lines just like Jason remembered. "Go ahead," Lou said. "Sit on it." Jason approached like the bike might disappear if he moved too fast. He swung his leg over the seat, hands finding the handlebars. The weight of it surprised him, heavier than he'd imagined, but balanced. He'd sketched this bike a dozen times from memory, but being on it was entirely different. "Looks good on you," Hatch said with a grin. "Few more years, maybe we'll teach you to ride." Jason smiled. Not the polite half-smile he used at school. A real one. They spent the evening showing him around. Lou explained engine mechanics while Jason absorbed every word. Crater told stories about road trips. Even the quieter members acknowledged him with nods or brief words. Jason belonged here. At least for tonight, he belonged. When his mother appeared in the doorway, her expression was guarded. But she stayed. Watched how the biker spoke to her son, with patience, with interest, with respect. She saw Douglas hand Jason a soda and ruffle his hair like an uncle might. Her shoulders gradually relaxed. "You've got a sharp kid," Douglas told her. "Observant. Honest. Those are rare qualities." "I know," she said softly, her eyes on Jason. "I just worry." "So do we," Douglas replied. "But maybe we can look out for him together." At school the next day, Jason wore the cap. He expected mockery. Expected Elise or someone like her to say something cutting. Instead, during lunch, a kid named Michael approached his table. Jason had never spoken to him before. "Is it true?" Michael asked. "About the bikers?" Jason hesitated. "What did you hear?" "That you helped them catch a thief. That you saw it happen and told them." "Yeah," Jason said simply. "It's true." Elise appeared behind Michael, arms crossed. "He's making it up. Like always." Michael didn't look at her. "My brother saw it online. They arrested a guy for stealing a motorcycle. Said it came from a neighborhood witness." Elise hesitated. Her mouth opened slightly, then closed again. She turned and walked away without a word. Jason watched her go. Something had changed, but it wasn't about winning. It was about being believed. That night, Jason sat at his window with his notebook. The clubhouse across the street had music playing again. Laughter drifted through the evening air. Douglas and Lou stood outside, talking over coffee. Lou glanced up at Jason's window and raised his mug in a small salute. Jason waved back. He wasn't invisible anymore. Wasn't the kid who made things up. He was Jason, the one who watched, who noticed and spoke when it mattered. That had always been enough. He just hadn't known it yet. Jason wasn't the hero anyone expected, but he became the one they needed. This story reminds us that courage isn't about being the loudest. It's about speaking up when no one else will. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to embrace the journey for more stories that prove even the quietest voices can echo the loudest. See you in our next video.